And we find this as well in the Quran. The Quran itself exhorts Muslims to go out and to access the bounties that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with as human beings. In fact, it says in a rhetorical gesture to those who would want to deny us access to the bounties that Allah has blessed us with, the Quran says, قل من حرم زينة الله التي أخرج لعباده والطيبات من الرزق. He says, who has forbidden the embellishments that God has brought forth for his servants and the good things of the sustenance that he has provided for them? In other words, it is not befitting of the human being to turn away completely from all of the bounties that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has blessed us with in the creation. Rather, it is precisely by accessing these bounties that we come into a more full and complete understanding of just how gracious, just how merciful, just how generous, just how powerful, just how wise, just how benevolent our Lord is. And if we withdraw from all of this, then what we end up doing effectively is undermining our ability to come into a proper relationship with our Lord, because we're not in a position to fully appreciate the depth of gratitude that we owe to him. And so Islam is a religion in which we attempt not to obliterate the self, not to mortify the self, but rather to refine the self. Ramadan is an institution of refinement of the self. And we notice that in the month of Ramadan, we abstain from eating, we abstain from drinking, we abstain from relations with our spouses. And yet, we do not abstain from eating all day. I'm sorry, we abstain from eating all day, but we do not abstain from eating all day and all night. We do not abstain from drink all day and all night. We do not abstain from the relationships that we have with our wives all day and all night. We abstain during the day and then we engage at night. Again, this is a means of enabling us to refine the self. And it's important for us to understand that human beings are in need of self-refinement. I think it's one of the fallacies, especially in modern times, not to understand that while we are enormously magnificent creations, and that we are, because we are creations of God. In fact, God tells us in the Quran that وَلَقَدْ خَلَقْنَا الْإِنسَانِ فِي أَحْسَنِ تَقْوِيمٍ, that we have created human beings in the very best of molds. In fact, we as human beings are one of the most miraculous creations of Allah. And because of that, many of us may not understand that because we are these miraculous creations of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, it does not mean that we are not in need of refinement in order to be brought to our absolute best selves. In a sense, we must think of ourselves in the same way that we think of a diamond in the rough. A diamond in the rough is still a diamond. It is a precious jewel, and yet it will never reach its full potential in terms of its value unless it is refined. It's still a diamond, unrefined, but it is an even more precious jewel once it has been refined. It comes to its full value and its full potential as a refined entity. And that's the same way in which we must look at ourselves as human beings. Ramadan is a method of enabling us to refine ourselves. And in refining ourselves, in refining our passions, in refining our egos, we are able to arrive at the absolute best expression of what it means to be human. Now let me talk a little bit about the whole point of refinement and the value of Ramadan in this regard. In the most fundamental sense, Ramadan is about being hungry. I know that there are many depictions of Ramadan that in some way or another seek to downplay the fact that when Muslims are fasting during the month of Ramadan, they are hungry. In fact, I remember my first Ramadan as a Muslim. I embraced Islam about 30 years ago. I was in America, in the city of Philadelphia, and it was the month of August. In the month of August, the days are very long. So Fajr was about 4:30 in the morning, and Maghrib was not until about 9 o'clock at night. This is my first Ramadan as a Muslim, so you can imagine the challenge that I had to face. And at that time, I was working a full-time job, so I get up very early in the morning and eat some suhoor, go back to sleep, get up again to go to work, 6 o'clock in the morning, work all day, get off of work, go back home, arrive at home, 5:30, 6:30 at night, after having worked all day, and still have to wait another 3 hours or so before I could eat or drink. But what that did for me was that it enabled me to habituate myself to the reality of having to put my passions, to put my ego on a diet so that they could remain slim and trim, that they would not disappear. I would not be without passions. Human beings without passions are rather worthless, because without passions, we can't promote the things that are important. We can't defend the principles that we believe in. We defend our principles because we believe in them, and we believe in them with passion. We promote our agendas because we believe in them, and we believe in them with passion. We are sometimes willing to sacrifice our money, to sacrifice our time, to sacrifice even our lives, because we believe in things with passion. And without that passion, we will not be in a position to make the kinds of sacrifices that need to be made in order to promote a dignified existence. And so our passions, or my passions, were not obliterated by my fasting, but they were refined. They were put on a diet. And what this means is that I began to become habituated to the reality that although I have natural instincts, and the instincts to want to eat, to want to drink, and to want to have sex, these are among the most natural instincts that a human being has. And yet, I was forced to put all of these things on a diet. And that brought me to the recognition that part of the process of self-refinement is to understand that even though I may have a natural tendency to do something, that I may not be able to do it when I want to do it. That is to say, that even though I may want to eat, I'm hungry, and there's food right in front of me, I have to tell myself, you will be able to eat, but not now. You have to discipline yourself. You have to wait. You have to postpone that gratification. And over a period of time, this kind of training, this kind of refinement will put me in a position where instead of my passions and my ego being the master of me, I can become the master of my passions. I can become the master of my ego. I can become a person who is in control of the choices that I make. And this is an extremely important facet of what it means to be a Muslim.